Black Lagoon is a action-packed character drama show about people who are either losing their way or have already lost their minds completely. It is a cast of characters that are pretty unredeemable, downright psychopathic, and just gritty as hell, and it is a fun ride. The story begins with our protagonist, Rokuro Okajima, or Rock, as I'll probably call him from now on. And he is a businessman who knows several other languages. Because of this, he is sent off to do business meetings and to translate. And unfortunately for him, he is on a ship that is taken over by pirates. The said pirates are a known group called the Lagoon Company. The Lagoon Company includes Revi, Dutch, and Benny. They usually do odd jobs for contract, so someone will call them or send them an email or find a way to contact them in order to set up a contract, and then they'll take it. And in this case, unfortunately, the Lagoon Company was hired to take command of the ship that Rock was on. And this, of course, escalates to where they eventually leave the ship, but they take Rock as a hostage. Our protagonist, Rock, at this point is very unsatisfied with his life. He is struggling to find any meaning in his boring, mundane, and peaceful life. And when action finally starts, in this case in a hostage situation, he ends up kind of being pushed over the edge.
The reason I ended up here. My bosses calmly cut my life away. I was an afterthought, and all for what? To protect their dirty money, their expense accounts, their place at the boardroom table. When you first invited me in, it was like waking up from a long sleep. My life had become the rush hour commute, the fake laughing, lowering my head, risking my life to score points. And all of that was fine as long as I had a place to drink after work and a batting cage nearby. And then, just like that, none of it mattered anymore. The one person who shook me awake, the one who invited me in, it was you, Revi. What concerns me now is that the one woman who showed me all of this is acting just like the people who betrayed me. I'm not gonna stand by and let that happen.
He ends up helping this Lagoon Company through coming up with a really dangerous and risky plan that somehow ends up working. And so he finally felt something other than boring monotony. And because of this, he ends up not joining back with his company when they did in fact come over to the South China Sea to pick him up. So he turns this down and he officially joins the Lagoon Company. The story then changes to a series of small arcs that are in the form of bounties being taken up by the Lagoon Company. How the stories essentially go is they'll focus on one or two characters, maybe add a new character in these arcs, and then focus on them and evolve a short story around said characters. Some of the best ones are usually the ones involved around Balalaika, or Roberta, or the Twin Murderers is a particularly excellent one. And so you have this ensemble cast that will show up occasionally or be in opposition of them in that particular contract because they're going against each other or they're suddenly allied up. And so everything's kind of like mixed up every so often with how these little arcs are structured. And I really enjoyed it. I remember watching this show when I was in middle school, of all things. Gosh, that feels like so long ago. I believe it was back in 2008 when I first watched this show. And honestly, it probably changed my perspective on anime forever and in media in general. I think the reason why I like this show so much is because it was probably one of the first shows that I watched that was like gritty and really character focused. Maybe I was a bit too young. Now, in retrospect, maybe I was a bit too young to watch this show, but it really got me thinking about this kind of thing. And it is, in fact, one of those shows that does get better with age because I, of course, watched it again recently. And yeah, there's a lot that kind of goes over the head of a middle schooler that you definitely pick up on now that you're older. And man, what a ride. Yeah, I definitely think my favorite part about the show is that it is very character driven.
残念だよ。かけねなし、言うことなしのどでか地雷を踏んだぜ。本当に残念だ。最後に一つ聞いとくぜ。墓にゃなんて書けばいい。
暴力バカにつける薬はねって書きな。
Other than the fact that I'm white collar, what do you know about me? It doesn't matter who you are or how you live. We all have to suffer, right? You have no intention of understanding that. Instead of owning up to things, you'd rather play the part of the tragic heroine. That's the most cowardly thing about you, Revy.
Shut up! It's convenient for you to see it like that! God damn it! This isn't one of those cheap, picaresque Hollywood films you love to talk about! There are no heroes in this life! And what's all this about pride? Fuck your pride! Look around you. It's shit as far as the eye can see. I hate to break it to you, but there is no fucking Robin Hood!
If there's no Robin Hood, then why don't you become Robin Hood?
Shut up! Shut the fuck up, damn it! I'm serious! I'll kill you!
Then do it. Keep chasing your tail like a dog if that's what you want. If you kill me here, then you'll just end up proving me right.
Ugh. That's all I know how to do! Fuck it. You're a real pain in the ass, you know that? An idiot like you won't live long.
We're both idiots and we've both suffered. Just leave it at that.
I'm pretty sure you're the biggest idiot here, dumbass. Hey, Rock. Just one thing. Let me ask you this, and there won't be any more trouble. So, I just want to know which side you want to be on.
Me? I'm right here where I'm sitting, Revy. I'm not anywhere else.
Rock, give me a light.
Light? The cops got the lighter.
What are you talking about? You got one in your mouth. What a fucked up day that was.
No shit.
You get to learn a lot about these characters every single episode, and they are usually absolute bangers. My favorite character in particular being Balalaika, because
Destroy the Washimine clan. To the point where their survival is impossible. Cut them down until not even a stump remains. Only that will free her. And nothing less.
I see your point. I see, indeed. That would be the only way to force the princess back into some kind of normal life. Or at least the quickest way. Quite devious, Rock. Excellent decision. I'm starting to think there may still be hope for you.
yeah, she's pretty great. Yeah, gosh, there's so much to talk about too. Like, for example, all these characters are kind of fucked up in some either minor or major ways. Like, for example, you wouldn't think too much of Benny, but he's the kind of person who will just see something fucked up and just won't do anything about it and will just move on. He also has like this backstory where, like, yeah, he grew up in Florida, he saw some fucked up shit, and so he ended up in these weird circles where he's now like a hacker on a ship, and he does all sorts of tech stuff and computer stuff, and so he's the tech guy. But even the tech guy has some little fucked up story, and obviously the most fucked up one is either Revy or Balalaika. Revy in particular grew up in New York, so you already know you already know her stories can be bad, but she grew up in New York where she was raped by the police while in custody for a juvenile crime. Her father did not give a shit about her, would beat her, and then would be constantly drinking. And one day, when he was intoxicated, he told her to put him to bed, and so she got a pillow, put it over his head, and shot him with his gun. And so, yeah, it was really fucked up. And from there, obviously, she somehow got into mercenary work. And then there's also Dutch, whose backstory is a little less obvious, but from what you can tell, he used to work for the US government, and something went awry, and so he quit being an agent for the government. And then there's all sorts of other characters, like the nun, that you can see on the screen, who's actually a current member of the CIA. And so she has these back deals with all these criminals. And then you have the leader of the church in the area, who's actually a drug dealer and general black market distributor. And so you have all these things going on, and it all takes place in a place called Roan Puar. It's supposed to be a fictional location, but it is in Thailand, which has a very long history of civil war and combat, and it's very close to Cambodia. It's on the border of Cambodia, in fact, and so it's a lot of real world mixing with the fictional, and man, is it good. I love this kind of stuff. I love the mixing of fiction with fantasy and a place I don't know about, because I think some of the issues with a modern fantasy setting in particular is usually like, if you know a lot about a place and then you see it portrayed in a weird way that's fictional, it kind of takes me out of show. But fortunately, I don't know way too much about Thailand, so. And it's realistic enough to where it doesn't bother me. Yeah, you even have history about Vietnam pushing the Khmer Rouge out of Cambodia in the 1980s. And so there's a lot to work with, and you can fill in yourself with the information that they give, and it's brilliant. I also really like Ranipur as a setting. The reason why I like it so much is because it's a melting pot of people who just don't get along with each other. The history of Ranipur is that it is a town that really started getting busy and bustling after and during the Vietnam War. And the reason for this was because the US troops like to go there for partying, and it was basically your regular port town where they go prostituting, they go drinking, and it brings business to the town. But after the war, people still wanted to stick around, so some people deserted and ended up just staying there. And because it had a through line through Vietnam and into Cambodia and into several other places in Southeast Asia, it is a major hotspot for drugs, guns, and general black market products. And so it's a really big hotspot for every single gang, every single major gang on the planet. And so you have the Chinese triad, you have the Italian mafia there, you have the CIA there, you have the Colombian cartel there. And so it's just this like place where people are constantly trying to fight it out and trying to gain territory. It's a really great setting for a show to take place in, because with this many different people involved, like with this many different types of gangs and bounty hunters and just general chaos that the city brings, it's a pretty perfect place to have any kind of scenario that you want to happen there. What I really like about the setting is that the only reason why the gangs aren't just like straight up killing each other all the time is because the United States government would in fact just come in and decimate the whole town. It is unequivocally a den of evil, and although you could argue that the United States government and pretty much every government is evil, they're at least not openly selling drugs to children and using them for drug trafficking, and there's no prostitution, and the United States government usually keeps a clamp on particularly bad cases of that. But so the whole reason why a place is even relatively, I wouldn't say safe, but not a completely destroyed location already is because the United States government would completely decimate the area if they knew about it. So There's always like assassinations and bounties on people who don't really belong there in order to keep things under wraps. And so it's such a great setting. The soundtrack of this show absolutely bangs, by the way. I just want to get that out there. It's very 2000s anime-esque. And what I mean by that, it's very electronic, but edgy and all the stuff that I absolutely love. For example, the main theme that comes on every single time. I love it. It's corny as hell, but I love it so much. It's fantastic. I love the like industrial sound, like do 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 do, and then they speak it in English. So it's really bad. I love it. And then of course all the serious songs are fantastic too, but that theme in particular is just amazing. Editing Belfry here. Yeah, I was wrong. This soundtrack slaps so fucking hard that it slaps my mom, my grandma, and all my ancestors. Like, bro, listen.
Where nobody has a name, where living is not a game, there I'll hide my broken heart, dying to survive.
One of the best anime OSTs ever. Yeah, I think my only criticism of the show, at least as far as I'm concerned, is that some of the action scenes just aren't very good. At least in season 1. Season 2 is significantly better than season 1, at least when it comes to action scenes. But just the way they're choreographed and how they kind of play out is pretty bad. But yeah, it just does not hit me very well. I think my problem is that there's a lot of like people shooting and then not hitting anybody, and then the main character like Revi or Roberta will come onto screen and then we'll just like kick everyone's asses or shoot them. Perfect accuracy, whereas all these fucking jobbers that are supposed to be experienced veteran soldiers or contract killers or assassins are just missing shots at these people who are just kind of standing out in the middle of totally chaotic gunfight, and it'll just be bad. And of course season 2 still has this problem, but season 1 in particular is really bad about this. It really takes me out of the show, unfortunately. But that first action scene with the boat in particular is pretty fun. But yeah, usually it's just the gunfights that bother me. With those kind of things, you usually want like either to talk to or watch people explain like military tactics about how gunfights go. And usually standing up in the middle of a gunfight out in the open is not a good idea. So yeah, only critique is the kind of lackluster gunfights, but I digress. The Revi versus the samurai one in particular is fucking awesome though, so it has its ups and its downs. As far as animation goes, it won't really impress you. The main appeal of the show is definitely the character moments and everything other than the action, unfortunately, at least for me. And so, although those scenes are pretty good, but like, you won't be impressed by how fluid the animation is. This is not one of those shows where it's like they had like a gigantic budget to do this. It's definitely relatively low budget until the action scenes, like most animes are. So take that as you will, but this wasn't a detriment to me, although I could see some people arguing that, and I think that's pretty fair. Overall, yeah, I'd say the show kicks ass. It kicked ass when I was in middle school, and it's only aged better since 2008. And honestly, I'd highly recommend it. If you like dark stories, if you like character drama, if you like the opposite of whatever a redemption story is, a downfall or a tragedy, if you like really fucked up gore scenes, unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on who you are, I guess. And if you like hot psycho bitches, then the show is definitely for you. This has been Timoteo Belfry, and thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a lovely day. Oh yeah, fair warning, the show is very 2000s, so expect some colorful language. I don't mind it because I was from those days, but I imagine a modern anime watcher would not be pleased with some of the racial slurs that are used in the show. So, fair warning.